Nothing on the Bunnell Foundation's Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast should be considered medical advice. Medical advice can only come from your CF physician. Cystic fibrosis can be a devastating diagnosis, but living with the disease can bring positivity and a new appreciation for each day. From the Bunnell Foundation in Detroit, Michigan, it's the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast, sponsored by Vertex Pharmaceutical. Here's your host, Laura Bunnell.
MIchele Ciancimino was an attorney and moved into nutrition because of her daughter. Alexa has cystic fibrosis and she is 27 years old today. When you have a child with cystic fibrosis, the doctors usually tell you that you should feed them a high-fat diet, throw in a stick of butter or two. Just don't worry because they usually have trouble gaining weight. But the reason for this podcast is that MIchele and I connected on the food angle of CF. We don't think that our kids who have cystic fibrosis need a high-fat diet, rather a healthy diet. So we talk about that. MIchele started Integrative Nutrition Certified Holistic Health Coaching. She has a personalized approach to nutrition. She provides coaching and support to individuals dealing with cystic fibrosis to help them successfully implement the nutrition recommendations from their CF care team. And again, it's inspired by her daughter's journey with CF and the powerful impact of good nutrition. Also on the personal side, MIchele's passions are ballet. She cooks healthy. She likes to cook for friends, and she likes playing with her rescue dogs. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So MIchele, welcome. It's wonderful to talk to you and meet you sort of in person, even if only over Zoom. But as we come out of this pandemic slowly, I just wanted to talk to you about something that we had in common. I was so glad to get your email and connect as CF moms on the nutrition side of cystic fibrosis. And why don't you talk a little bit about, kind of introduce us to yourself, but when did you realize that maybe it wasn't just that, you know, kids with cystic fibrosis needed a high-fat diet?
Well, obviously my daughter Alexa was diagnosed when she was 2. And I was told at the time, okay, you have to just give her all the fat and calories that you can give her, just anything, heavy cream on the cereal. I mean, I was an attorney at the time. I was not well-versed in nutrition. But that even didn't sound right to me. It just sounded like a very unhealthy diet. So over the years, I just started researching on my own to find out what can I do to make her healthier? What can I do to make her life better, longer, higher quality? And, you know, I realized that healthy fats were a part of it, but it wasn't everything. It was a well-rounded diet, with fat being an important part, but just the right kind of fat.
And I think that's something that we have in common. I remember it was for us, the doctor was saying, just put sticks of butter in everything, like mac and cheese, tons of butter. Sundays, if they want ice cream before dinner, all sorts of that. And the reasoning was that they were only getting half the calories, even with their enzymes. So they needed double the amount of food and they had trouble gaining weight. But as my girls got older, they didn't like that. And Emily, my youngest, had the most trouble gaining weight. At one point, I remember we were like, you have got to get under or over 100 pounds. You have to. We don't want you to have a feeding tube. You know, we tried all sorts of shakes and powders and all sorts of things to get her weight over 100 pounds. And, you know, it is frustrating when you have children who need to gain weight. But as we discovered, when my girls really took control of that part, that aspect of their CF, and decided that being a vegetarian and vegan for a time was the way to go, it really, everything leveled off for them. They really found that they ran much smoother, their bodies, and they were working out and riding bikes and everything.
Yeah.
Did you also find that?
Yeah. I mean, I think what I saw at the beginning was just changes in my kids weren't getting sick as often. And just as I started to change, not just what Alexa was eating, but the whole family, they didn't get sick as often. They weren't rowdy, like with all the sugar when kids go to the birthday party and they get all sugared up. And, like we kind of kept those kinds of treats out of the house. And I made healthy versions of treats that they liked, and just a lot of positive changes from changing the lifestyle. And I do think she learned a lot as I was learning. She learned from me, and she, to this day, is a really healthy eater. She doesn't crave things that are not healthy for her. And, back in the day when they were telling us to feed them all this butter and heavy cream, I think the life expectancy was lower at the time. And I think it was just like, let's just keep them just fattened up so that if they get sick and they're burning their calories, they're going to be okay. They can afford to lose a couple of pounds, but it's not a healthy way to eat. And I think today, now with the life expectancy being longer, now they've changed their tune to say, well, let's focus on healthy fat. So fortunately, we were doing that already. So not too much of a change there.
And I don't believe that, I don't have any statistics to back this up, but I don't think we're in the majority on this. I think we're probably still in the minority on doing this.
Yeah. And now there are things like people that are on Trikafta who are now suddenly gaining weight, and they were used to living this high fat lifestyle of eating sticks of butter. And now it's like, okay, I'm sort of like a regular person. How do I manage my nutrition? What do I need to do? Like they sort of need to be retaught how to eat a healthy diet. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. Like people have different, well, of course, everyone's body is different, but people on Trikafta now have a whole new life to figure out.
Right, exactly. And I was just going to mention that as well. That's what I've been hearing also. I have one daughter on the triple combo and one who cannot be on it at this time. But it's very interesting. I think the other thing is, at least for our family, when the kids are on a high-fat diet, the whole family is on a high-fat diet. I did not need to be on a high-fat diet.
No, the rest of us don't.
So it was really hard. And it's, my oldest is 26. And I would say as a mom, I'm just now backing off all that high-fat food.
Yeah.
As we got healthier and smarter. Of course, my kids did not have a weight problem. The challenge was gaining weight, not overeating. So even with the high-fat foods. And we'll be right back after this. Thanks for supporting our podcast by subscribing to them and for your financial donation to the foundation. A caregiver with a newly diagnosed child listened to our Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast and said it helped her process the disease in a healthy and realistic way. Subscribe and you'll be the first to hear them. Go to thebonnellfoundation.org if you're able to help others in the CF community by donating. So what have you learned as you've become an integrative nutrition certified holistic health coach? Kind of how do you work with the CF community and continue going forward?
Yeah, it was really my daughter's whole journey that led me there. So I wasn't enjoying practicing law anyway. So it felt very natural for me to go in that direction toward getting certified as a health coach and being able to share this message about better nutrition. And what I've been doing for the last 5 years or so is just doing personalized nutrition and recognizing that everyone's body is unique and everyone's needs are different. People have different types of health concerns going on. But I chose to sort of go in this direction now to help the CF community because I've been in some of the Facebook support groups and I've had so many people reach out with questions about nutrition. So I decided to create a survey and I surveyed people in these groups and I had a lot of responses, people saying that they didn't understand how to eat high calorie and healthy, or what are the healthy fats? Like, how do I include them? How much do I need? I don't have time for breakfast. I don't have the energy to cook. How do I make this easy and not just grab fast food, but do something that's easy yet healthy and meets the needs that I have for the higher calories. So I saw so many questions that it just led me to say, all right, well, what can I do? This, of course, is close to my heart. What can I do to help these people and to answer these questions? So I devoted an area of my website to CF nutrition, and I'm calling it CF Nutrition Made Simple because we need to make it simple. Yeah, I'm just putting lots of resources there, interviews with experts, my daughter's dietitian at UCLA, and others. I'll have interviews here and there on different topics that are of interest to them, and also recipes, kitchen hacks, tips and tricks on living a healthier lifestyle. So I think it'll be a really good sort of community where I can share this information and really help them along in the journey.
What kind of response are you getting so far after you initiate conversations?
Well, just initiating conversations through the survey, I started talking to a lot of people who had questions. So, for example, I asked them what their most difficult meal is. Some people said breakfast, some people said dinner, some people said they don't have time to get snacks during the day, and they really should be getting 3 meals and a couple of snacks a day. And other questions like, what do you wish you had? As some people said they wish they had a meal plan, or they wish they had more guidance on how to put meals together. So, I've learned about what their needs are. A lot of people want to learn about anti-inflammatory eating and what does that mean? I think a lot of the dietitians, and they're great, all the clinic dietitians, but they don't have a lot of time to spend with each patient on the specifics of their nutrition. Like, what exactly are you eating? Like, here's what we can change. Like, here's something high fat that's healthy. Here's some recipes for you. Some of them, I'm sure, do that, but the majority don't really have time. They mostly want to know what the weight is and are you keeping your weight up? And it's more about that than it is about the specifics around what they're eating and how they could do better.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and I think what you're doing is very helpful. And like, one of my daughters is lactose intolerant and the other isn't, but that's a whole nother avenue of healthy eating.
Right. And that's the challenge too with families with CF. Like you said earlier, if 1 or 2 of them have to be on high fat, it's like you don't want to cook multiple meals. So the whole family has to eat that. So, it's kind of like, what can we do to make a meal where you can add the fat at the end, or something where it doesn't have to be that everyone without CF is also consuming this high calorie, high fat diet that they don't need. You can make changes and make meals that you can kind of tweak for that person who needs more calories.
And so have you found that being a vegetarian, being vegan, or eating meat or whatever it is, that all of those diets can work depending on what the person with CF, what direction they want to go?
Yeah, I think, you can, if you're a meat eater and that's what you love, it is high in fat, but it's high in saturated fat. So it tends to be more inflammatory. However, on the other end, if you're eating all plants and being vegan or vegetarian, you have to eat a lot more food. And some of them just don't have time. So you do have to eat a lot more food to get in the calories when you're not getting the higher fat. So it's kind of a balance, like how much weight do you need to gain? Are you doing okay with your weight? Or is your energy low? Like, there's a lot of different pieces we want to think about, because with digestive impairment, which many of them have, they're not able to digest meat. And then it leads to other issues with digestion and discomfort and all of that. So meat is pretty difficult to digest. So smaller amounts of meat, if you choose to eat it, a smaller amount that's more digestible with more veggies and high fat, some sauteed in coconut oil or something like that, where they can be getting the high fat and the veggies are easy on the digestion, but they can still get some fat from meat. And if that's what they like, it's a little easier to digest when you have the meat as sort of the accessory on the plate and the bulk of your plate is veggies. I kind of like that system if you choose to eat meat.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason that my girls made the switch to being vegan and vegetarian is because they had bowel obstructions because of CF, and the real heavy foods were just killing their guts.
Yeah, I think, just a person without CF has a difficult time and may feel heavy and sluggish after eating a big steak or something. So, of course, someone with a little more difficulty digesting would probably want to go, many of them would probably want to go toward a lighter diet, but it's just, how do they do it? And that's another question that comes up. Can I be a vegetarian with CF? Can I be a vegan with CF? And of course you can. You just need to know how to do it. And I feel like that's where the support that I'm offering them will come in. I'll be able to give them some tips and pointers on how they can put their meals together and how they can still get enough fat and calories living that different kind of lifestyle.
Also, I have not seen with my girls, like there was no sudden or huge weight loss when they switched to being vegan or vegetarian.
Right.
They just burned calories more efficiently.
Yeah, their digestion was probably working more efficiently, so everything felt better. Are they still vegetarian?
Yes, they both are. Yeah. And
okay.
I don't eat much red meat anymore. I eat fish. I wouldn't say I was vegetarian because I'm eating fish, but yeah, I feel so much better. We don't eat, or I don't eat sugar anymore.
Mm-hmm. Sugar is also inflammatory. And, that's a place where people pick up a lot of calories. But again, if you're eating a lot of packaged and processed foods and they're high in sugars, and that's not healthy for you either. So that's something else I do. I mentioned earlier how I create sort of healthy versions of treats that they like. So, if you like cupcakes, we can make cupcakes that are healthier, but we can still put healthy fats in there and make it something that's a treat and it tastes good, but it's good for you, but it's still got some fat. So there are ways to navigate, but if you go to the grocery store and load up on cookies and crackers and processed food, that doesn't serve you well either, CF or not.
Right. And it's for each family to navigate, even as you have said, you work with their CF clinic or their nutritionist on this. But someone being diagnosed today, maybe who's hearing that, they should stick with a high-fat diet, kind of what is the counter speech that you would give to them to consider and maybe investigate, look into before they put their child on a high-fat diet?
Well, with a beginning diagnosis. So let me just say, though, that I'm not a doctor and I'm not a registered dietitian like the clinic dietitian. So I'm a health coach. So I see my role really as being a guide or a coach to help them implement the recommendations of the CF care team. So let me just say that. But the way I would see that as someone new to CF, I guess it depends on where the child's weight is, or if it's a child, where they are with their weight. Do they need to gain weight, or are they stable with their weight? Like, what percentile are they in? Like, my daughter was always tiny. She's 4'10" and she's about 100 pounds now, which is great. But at the time, she was always in the lowest percentile, and they kept saying, you have to get her to gain. And I said, but she's tiny and she's going to be tiny. And I will feed her appropriately. Like, I'll feed her good, healthy food. But I felt like that's all I had to do. I didn't have to go overboard, because for her size and her height, her weight was okay, even though she's tiny. She's similar to myself. So it's not like you want to force feed them all of this food, if that's the type of body type they're born with. So in my case, I just fed her healthy food. But I think someone new to CF would just want to look at where the weight is, and then where can we start to add? Do we need to add a lot of fat? Let's just start adding healthy fats to the diet, and really just being well balanced at the beginning, and then, see what your body's telling you as you go through the whole journey, because it changes. Things change as they grow, and the needs change. So it's kind of one of those things that's personalized. And I feel like nutrition has to be personalized, because just in any case with a person with CF or not, your diet, your body's unique, your needs are unique. So your nutrition should be unique to you. And same with CF, like as they change and grow, my daughter's needs changed. And so we changed with it.
And I think that's a really good point that you were talking about. I'm 5'10", my daughters are 5'9". And I remember just the mental anguish of they have to gain weight, they have to gain weight. We were so focused on weight, and more so for girls. That's a huge thing. I was trying to be conscious about not making it about their weight, just separate from CF, just because it's always about body image for girls. Are you beautiful? Are you thin? Because thin is beautiful. And then, and I remember that pressure from both girls were like, well, we don't want to be fat, Nobody, it's not good if you're fat, because all the stigma that went with that. So it was a really hard balance when you're just pushing, come on, you got to gain weight. Like, it didn't make any sense to them.
Right. Especially if they're healthy. Like, why are we pushing and pushing? But I know that I've been told, I did an interview with the UCLA dietitian, and we talked about how BMI is directly related to lung function. So you do want to keep your BMI in a certain range, but at the same time, you do have to balance that with the body image issues, especially with the girls, because some of them, and the dietitian told me this too, some of them don't want to get fat. Like you said, they're afraid, and they start to develop. It becomes such an obsession, because it seems like an obsession to the family. Like, you have to gain weight, you have to gain weight. They sort of become obsessed, and that leads to, eating disorders and things like that. And of course, we don't want to complicate things for them that way. So it just has to be a healthy balance of, let's keep you healthy. Let's make sure you're eating well. And I would focus more on eating well than gaining weight. Like, those words are, that gets them fired up and obsessed and scared. And it just can lead to some negative things.
Talking about that body image for girls, it is different for boys, but for both of them, in addition to the healthy eating, I think we also discovered, and we discovered this before we began thinking about that eating could be different. It didn't have to be high fat. We discovered early on the importance of an exercise routine and being active. And that was also something our pediatric pulmonologist even agrees today. Obviously, the girls are in the adult clinic now, but that they didn't realize when my girls were born how important it was to be active. We found that out through someone else who had CF, and he was telling my girls, oh my gosh, the most important thing I found for my health is to work out, go to the gym, and be in really good shape. And so as the girls were playing sports in high school and junior high too, they realized the benefits of being active.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My daughter loves like the indoor cycling classes. So she's got a bike at home, and she gets on there. Even when her lung function was lower, she's on Trikafta now, which her lung function has shot way up. But when it was lower, she still was riding that bike because she wanted to, keep her lung function higher. And it's almost like doing another breathing treatment, because you're having to breathe harder. And just that conditioning is critical.
It is. And, I've told this story before, but I'll just briefly tell you, when my daughter had her first exacerbation in England, because she lives there now, in the hospital there, unlike the hospital here in the States, they have a stationary bike in the patient's room, and they have to get on that. I know that the pulmonologist will, come into rooms and and do stretches and things with the kids. But in the UK, they had her outside walking at first and then like running down the street, even with her PICC line in. Of course, there's no problem with that. But it was really interesting, just kind of the different approaches of staying and getting healthy.
Yeah, my daughter has had one hospital stay where the bike was in the room, but the bike was like an adult bike, and she's so tiny that her feet wouldn't go in the pedals, like she couldn't pedal it, and we couldn't get the seat low enough. But anyway, so she still walked the hallways. But yeah, they didn't really stress that. You're right. It wasn't stressed as much. Of course, maybe they don't feel well,
right.
But still just even walking in the hallways and just not laying in the bed all the time, just moving is so beneficial to your body. And also another form of exercise that's great is just the little rebounder. You can get, it's like a tiny one-person trampoline, if you don't know what a rebounder is, but you can get a folding one that goes under your bed. And just that jumping is like a breathing treatment. It's such good conditioning, and you can do like a little routine on there. You can do it with your favorite music or whatever you like, but just that jumping is so good for conditioning and for the lungs. And yeah, it does get you breathing heavy too.
Fantastic. And let's get back to the holistic health coach that we're talking about as well. What other thoughts and ideas do you have for CF parents who are interested in maybe exploring other ways, with their kids? And of course, they should always consult their CF doctor and CF nutritionist.
Right.
They certainly shouldn't just say, we're doing this because we heard it on a podcast. They definitely need to talk to their CF clinic care professionals.
Yeah, definitely. I first, when I wanted to offer these resources to CF patients and their families, I immediately decided, okay, I want to contact the team at UCLA and see what they think of this idea. And the dietitian there said, I think it's a great idea. I do get a lot of questions. They do need support. And I really don't have a lot of time to go into the specifics. So that would be really helpful to them. So yeah, I think as long as you have the guidance of what they tell you need, like if they say your BMI is really low, like you need to eat a high calorie diet, there are going to be resources on my website for that. And of course, I do one-on-one work as well. So if someone wanted a session with me, I can give them some guidance, create a meal plan for them. So there are lots of different ways that I can help. But I think doing some recipes, I did a series last week on, I called it Hack Your Snack. So I'm always thinking of kitchen hacks and tips and tricks to make it easier. Hack is just a way of making something easy. So I just did Hack Your Snack because I know a lot of them have told me that they don't have time for snacks. And I gave them a way to prepare something that they can do for the whole week. And it's just going to be grab and go. And it's got healthy fat, it's got protein, it's got carbs, it's got all of those nutrients. And it's just easy. So things like that, or ways to make dinner easier. I've done a couple of articles on that. So I'm doing blog posts and videos. I do some kitchen demos, and there's just going to be a lot of things. And I want to get feedback and interaction from them so that I can build it into a community. And as they give me feedback, I can address the concerns that they have going forward.
Well, I think it's a great idea. And anyone that wants to get in touch with you, all the information is on our podcast page, so they can find all of your links. But I just wanted to thank you because I think this is just the beginning of a conversation that you can have with your CF doctor and your CF nutritionist and even your kids. It's really important to involve the whole family and see what they're thinking. But thanks for coming and joining us on this podcast. It's a great topic to hear more about.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
The original music in this podcast is performed by Kevin Allen.
It's not complicated.
Who happens to have cystic fibrosis.
We all got our worries and fears. I know it's got you frustrated, but loving you is so alright.
This has been the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast. For more information and to learn more about the Bonnell Foundation, check them out online at thebonnellfoundation.org. That's BONNELL Foundation.org. This podcast was sponsored by Vertex Pharmaceutical, the science of possibility, and produced by Jag and Detroit Podcasts.